Welcome back to Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. I am, as always, Chat Show, though not for much longer. Have you heard the rumors? Yeah, coming to a screeching halt. 10 years is enough. Will be the name of the next book. Those of you who bought the first book, How I Slept My Way to the Middle, not just a funny title and technically still available on Amazon Prime. I'm not writing a second book. Yeah, that's just the update on that. We're coming to you today from the Earwolf Studios in Hollywood, California. Last several episodes, at the end, I've been inviting folks to come on by and say hello. Second floor, just walk right in, let them know I sent you. Little to no security. And when I walked in this morning, and first thing you see is a conference room, and everyone was gathered. I made a joke, sorry I'm late, and then found out they were watching a video on what to do in case of a shooter entering the building. And I asked immediately, is this anything to do with my allegedly humorous sign-off of inviting people by? They didn't know I was doing that. And just a happy coincidence that they were preparing themselves. So let me be more clear. When you come by to say hello and that I sent you, be weaponless. Without weapon is what we're looking for, please. No Sammy or Jamie today, but for our very last show, we'll be live in front of an audience on March 2nd, 4 p.m. at the Dynasty Typewriter Theater near the Hollywood, California area. If you happen to be in the area, go to dynastytypewriter.com, I think, is the name of that website, and get yourself some tickets while they last. Live show, Pamela Adlon, the brilliant Pamela Adlon will be my guest, plus other surprises. And that'll be the last roundup. 10 years, 400 shows. It's enough. Thank you for all your support. But seriously, go fuck yourself with me doing more of these, because that's off the table. It's off the table. Don't put it back on the table. For those of you who give a good goddamn, the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel has won more awards. It's obnoxious at this point. You know, you want appreciation from your peers. That's high on my list anyways. And so we all go down to the SAG Awards. Several individual cast members nominated. I, of course, was not. But the cast itself was nominated, Best Ensemble, which meant I had a shot at bringing home some hardware. Finally, from this fucking thing, right? Come on. And the first three awards of the whole night. Best Actress in a Comedy goes to Rachel. Best Actor in a Comedy goes to Tony Shalhoub. Best Ensemble goes to the cast of The Marvelous Mrs. But so we won the first three awards of the night, and by the third award, it was like 9 people out of 2,000 just. Yeah, from my favorite Christian Bale video, "Good for you," is what it kind of felt like in the room. Although Christian Bale was also there, and he's a very sweet man. And by the way, those of you who have enjoyed that rant, Lose Your Mind video, I side with Mr. Bale in the goings on. Fuck that DP walking around in the background who he asked, don't fucking walk around in the background while I'm allegedly acting. Fuck that guy. Yeah, no, I've been on sets where people decide to be distracting. Now, Christian went a bit far. He knows that. We all go a bit far, but fuck that guy, that cinematographer. Unless I need him in the next film I'm directing, and then by all means, fuck Christian Bale. You know, what is his problem with the bat thing? Let's go to your mail. I've got one from another Kevin McCaig. I've never seen this spelling. M-C, big K, A-G-U-E. McCaig, right? Sure. Who writes, I love the theme. I love the theme. I need more coffee. I love the theme song to your show, and I will miss it when you stop making new episodes. Is there somewhere I can buy it? The performer deserves some royalties. I miss your show too, I guess. Kevin McCaig. Yeah. So Brian Tyler, who was a guest on this show, you can look him up in the archives. He's award-winning composer of motion pictures. Majorly slummed and did the theme song for me, playing like 11 instruments on it too. Recorded in his studio. It's insane. I agree with you, Kevin McCaig, with ridiculous spelling. He deserves something out of the deal instead of the limp-wristed thank you he got from me. Brian Tyler, genius beyond compare. And thank you, Kevin McKeag, for phoning in your question. I think that's it for the opening of the show. Again, stop by Earwolf, say hello without a weapon, and go to dynastytypewriter.com for tickets to the final wrap-up live in front of an audience. Be weaponless there as well, please. March 2nd. These jokes are funny, by the way, until they're not. So don't be the reason they're not funny, you fucks. Please welcome Mr. Gary Gulman. Gary.
Yes. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, sir. First of all, thank you very much for being here. I know it's a thrill beyond belief for you.
It's a thrill and it's surreal. I feel it's Rupert Pupkin-esque for me.
Well, we're going to get into that.
Okay.
I mean, I do want to talk about it. But first, I want to thank you for coming all the way from New York to Los Angeles just to do this podcast. I mean, it's a long way to go. And honestly, I'm honored. I mean, I'm embarrassed for you mostly, but
of course.
Man. All right, now let's get to the Rupert Pupkin aspect.
Yes.
Is that suggesting that I'm Jerry Langford?
Kind of. I've been a fan since Avalon.
Keep talking.
As a teenager, and I wanted to be a stand-up comedian.
Okay.
And you were already a successful stand-up comedian at that time, and as you know, it is delusional, really, when you're first starting out to think you'll ever get to meet these people, and then when you do, and it's almost like I'm acting out that scene that Rupert had in his basement with Liza Minnelli and
Jerry, I can't give you 6 weeks.
I can give you the 6 weeks,
Jerry.
Yes, Kevin. All right, I'll come on your show. I'll come on your final appearances. Yes. This is miraculous.
Well, thank you for all of that, and I was a stand-up comedian in San Francisco when Diner came out. It's the Barry Levinson Roundup. You mentioned Avalon. So he does Diner, and Paul Reiser's in it.
Unbelievable.
Who I'd seen, probably on The Tonight Show, do stand-up.
Right.
And he was coming through my town, San Francisco, to perform at Cobb's Comedy Club. This is back in whatever year or so that Diner came out. Ryan, can you...
82?
Let's see. This is a thing that Jamie Foxx normally does here. She is Rain Man of dates for movies, as is Sam Levine for that matter. But our very own guest, Gary Gulman, has just coughed up 82. That feels right. But damn it, let's get an answer. So he's playing at Cobb's, and we'll get to you in a second.
I love these stories.
And like you, I had seen him in the movie, and I thought, I got to meet this guy. And also, I'm a comedian. He's a comedian. He's playing in town.
Yeah.
Why the fuck can't I call? So I call the owner or the guy who books Cobb's, and I say, I want to call Paul Reiser. What hotel is he staying at? Don't bother him. I'm not going to bother him. I'm going to say, hello, I'm a fan. I'm not going to try to sell him something.
Yeah.
I get the hotel. I call up, and I don't know why, but I chicken out, and I when he says, yes, hello, I go right into Peter Falk.
No way.
Yeah. I decide I'm going to talk to him as Peter Falk. And, hi, Paul. It's Peter Falk. Listen, the wife and I are in town, and we're driving past, I don't know, a marquee or something, and your name is on. We got tickets. We're going to come to the show. I'm very excited. And
wow.
So he starts talking to Peter Falk.
Yeah.
And he's immediately enamored.
Oh, my word.
And is confessing his lifelong fanship, devotion.
My word.
And so it's so bad and sincere that I can't break.
No.
I can't, because I don't want to be that asshole.
It would be cruel.
It would be cruel.
Yes.
But unfortunately, it's even more cruel for those of you who should ever attempt this at home. Our conversation goes on for 9 minutes, and I don't break.
Wow.
And at this 4-minute mark, I'm thinking, there's no way out of this ever.
No.
I can never let him know this was me. By the 9-minute mile, where I have to hang up.
Yeah.
Because he's not letting it go. There's no end to this conversation. Now we're in the minutia. We went down to the wharf earlier today. They got crabs, big crabs. And I don't know where the fuck this is going. So
this is incredible.
I say, what's that? I'm yelling off to a fictitious wife. I'm talking to the, all right, I got to go, Paul. And we hang up. And now there's a little delight along with the embarrassment, along with the,
it's a great prank.
Fuck, I can never tell him that I did this.
Yes.
Because I want to still ingratiate myself.
Of course.
And so by telling him I did this would never ingratiate me to him. It would only embarrass him, and I'm an asshole.
Yes.
But I still want to meet him.
Yeah.
And so I do want to eat the shit that I need to eat to get through this.
Right.
So I call him back, and he answers the phone. Yes, hello. And I go right into Peter Falk again. Paul, it's Peter. I had to call back. Oh, Mr. Falk, I was sitting here and I was thinking to myself, I can't believe Peter Falk called me. I've called 3 people since you called just to let them know. And now it's worse. The whole thing. The nightmare is never ending. But I can't let it go on again. So I mid-sentence transition from Peter Falk to me. And I say, well, listen, Paul, this is Kevin Pollak. I'm a local comedian. I just feel fucking horrible, but I'm such a fan and such an admirer of yours that I was too chicken to talk to you as myself, and please forgive me. And there is a very long pause, very long, to which it ends with him saying, you are not a nice person. Can I be honest with you? That's a horrible thing. Why would you? But then he comes around, and we have a conversation, and we've been friends ever since.
Really?
But yes, but I
that's the greatest Danny Rose story.
To the point where it's in my act. I tell the story because I later called him as Alan Arkin too, and it's a whole other 3-act play.
The whole In-Laws cast.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So meeting heroes, is an odd thing. And also, you're right, when you're dreaming about doing stand-up and you're watching what becomes a hero.
Yeah.
Not only does it never cross your mind when you're to meet them.
Right.
How does it even cross your mind that you're going to be a professional comedian? What are you, 10 years old when you see Avalon?
No. I think I was 16 probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's not fight so early in the interview. Let's say you were 16. Yeah. If that's what you need.
Yeah. Maybe I was, I don't know. But I saw.
What year was the movie?
Was it Diner?
What's that?
Diner was the...
Diner.
Yeah, 82.
82. On the
all right.
button. On the button.
Well, that
nicely done.
Yeah, that's a lot of guys' favorite movies.
Yeah, if you're a comedian, yes. And to think that Barry, that was his first film he ever wrote.
Incredible.
It's kind of sick.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And the cast, oh my word.
Is absurd.
Absurd.
Yeah, no, it really is. And I would invite anyone to stop listening to this and get that film and watch it.
Avalon actually holds up better.
Does it?
Yes.
Oh, I've not revisited Diner in probably 15
Well, the
years.
issue with the Diner is the boogie scene with the popcorn, and it was
aggressive?
It was a different time.
Carol Heathrow, you ever talk to her?
She's not a smart girl.
Not a bright girl. She's not a bright girl. You ever talk to her?
You know what word I'm not comfortable with?
Oh, so
nuance.
I'll give you something for that. I finally got to work with Barry on Avalon, as you mentioned, and I asked him about that scene where Paul Reiser and Mickey Rourke's character are just driving in a car, and they're driving in silence, and out of nowhere, Paul Reiser's character says what you just said, a word I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah.
Nuance. It's not even a word. Gesture, you know where you stand. So I asked Barry what that was, and he said, well, we did it. It was written as silence because I like the silence of them driving. Because sometimes guys are not only comfortable enough to drive in silence, but most often there's nothing they have to say when it's just two guys.
Oh yeah.
So he said it was written for silence, and then I don't know which take it was, but I just leaned in the car window before Paul drove off again to start the scene, and I said, I just walked up to him and said, "You're not comfortable with the word nuance."
Wow.
That's all I said.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Paul made magic. Yeah, and Barry got magic.
But I also feel, and I can never prove this, but that was partially a inspiration for Seinfeld and that type of non-plot driving dialogue that we all fell in love with Seinfeld and
I wonder if Larry, David, and Jerry
were inspired by that at all.
Yeah, because it does make sense. It was kind of the first time, right? Guys sitting around talking about nothing.
I can't think of anything.
I think it was sort of heralded for that as well.
Yeah,
the genuine.
It was a revelation, that movie. Yeah,
It certainly influenced my acting and writing, for sure,
yeah,
without a question.
yeah.
And also, in watching your stand-up, I see you enjoy telling a story and departing from it with chasing some sort of piece of logic or addendum, and it's ultimately what I think makes your onstage persona and your material elevated instantly to a level of right? Is in this case a good thing.
Okay.
Because stand-up is not only a difficult thing to master, but it's a nearly impossible thing to be original. Because we're all influenced, as we're talking about Dinah and Paul Reiser, and in this case, me. We're all influenced, and at first you don't really have your own voice, and then eventually you find it. But even that is rarely original.
Right.
And clearly, to my point, you're not the first comedian to find a easy method by which one digresses from one's own story.
Right.
But when you do it, I do see a level of originality in the childlike abandonment with which you share your thoughts and thread of them.
Oh, wow.
Where did you find that? Do you remember?
Well, I can talk about my influences, which were first David Brenner on Carson.
Sure.
When I was 4 or 5, my mom, the comedian's on, she'd yell from the other room.
Right.
I'd come running.
Sure.
It was midnight.
Yeah.
But I would get
5-year-old needs to watch TV.
Yes.
Tremendous parenting. Yeah. I love her, by the way. Love her for that move.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Oh.
And then she took me actually for my bar mitzvah. We went to see Carson. Now I was 13. You had to be 16 to get into the.
From Boston.
Yes, but I was 5'9" or 5'10" at 13. I've always been very tall. She snuck me in.
You had to be how old to get in the audience?
You had to be 16.
Okay.
I was 13, but I was tall.
Please.
The woman said, "Excuse me, is he of age?" And my mother cussed her out, said, how dare you think that I would sneak an underage in to see
Always a great
Mr.
move.
Johnny Carson? The woman backed down immediately.
Yeah.
And
give respect to Johnny.
And the guest was
in
Gary.
Your rant.
The guest was Gary Shandling.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it was his second appearance. It was the one where he says to Carrie Fisher, "Do you know my parents? Muriel and Irv Shandling."
Yes.
And
one of the classics.
And that's it. I have to be a comedian for
really?
the rest of my life. How can I do anything else? I mean, I had other sidelines. I just the reverence my family showed to these people and the power that laughter had over these bickering, shallow people was just, I couldn't. I'm the youngest child, which I think is very common amongst comedians, and I had to entertain, and that was the beginning. And I really connected with your interview with Brian Koppelman, where you decided this very, very young, and I used to make cassette tapes for my friends. They would pass them around in school, and
what was on the tapes?
They were impressions.
Really?
Yeah. I would do characters, people we went to school with.
Great.
Or some basic, who would I do then? I would do
football coach.
I would do the football coach. I would do certain teachers.
Right.
And then there were the Saturday Night Live characters at the time were like Nathan Thurman, Ed Grimley, the Martin Short characters, and some Billy Crystal stuff thrown in there. Yeah. It was impressions of impressions.
Yeah. Well,
that's what
listen,
I was doing. Yeah.
That's where we all kind of got that. Dana Carvey and I started out at the same time together in San Francisco, and we would remark that our Johnny Carsons came from watching Rich Little do Johnny Carson,
Yes.
even though we'd watched Johnny Carson
Yes.
our whole lives.
Yes.
Someone has to
Yes.
find the key to open the thing before you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So when you're 13 in the audience and you see Gary Shandling, that is literally the first time you say it in your thoughts?
No, I think it was brewing and subconscious from that point. I think even in first grade when they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said I wanted to be a comedian. And
First grade.
yeah.
Wow.
First grade, absolutely. But then the Carson, the Shandling, and he was. I hadn't had any experience with Woody Allen up to that point, so
Right.
so Shandling was probably the next incarnation of a Woody Allen, where he was self-deprecating, he was neurotic, but he was also having sex, which I thought was very interesting. And this guy, this nebbishy guy, is also going to have sex. And at 13, I can't. There's no way I'm getting sex unless I could be as funny as Gary Shandling at the 30.
You probably weren't wrong.
I was
about
yes,
that.
I was not a handsome boy.
Because most fellas are completely put together at 13.
With braces and the nose coming in ahead of everything else.
Sure.
Ugh.
Literally ahead.
Yeah.
Leading the pack, as it were. So I think your mom saying to the 5-year-old, get in here and see the comedians on.
But there was also Merv. There was Mike Douglas in the afternoon.
Please. Before Carson, I did 3 Mervs in no time, like 4 months.
Would you get recognized off those?
Probably, but I don't remember because it's been 100 years.
Right.
And also recognized by Mahjong groups. Watching in the afternoon was not a thing yet.
Right.
So Merv was very popular.
Yeah, but Housewives, there were things called Housewives back then.
Without question.
Yes.
I just wasn't hanging out with Housewives when I was 27.
Right.
I hadn't figured out that there was gold in them Nar Hills.
Yeah.
But you're right. I too was influenced by those afternoon talk shows when a comedian would come on.
Yeah.
Because Mike Douglas and Merv Griffin would have, very hip comics on.
Yes.
And
Jay.
in the afternoon.
Yes.
But before them, even, I think, I don't want to say I saw Pryor on one of them, but maybe. I mean,
probably. I saw Brenner.
They did
saw
all of them.
Toady Fields was my mother's favorite. I loved Joan.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it was a comedy album, but I think the same thing happened where my parents were laughing.
What was the comedy album?
The serial rapist known as Bill Cosby.
Oh,
his first album. If they just put that in the liner notes, by the way, that would have been helpful to a 10-year-old. Maybe don't make this guy your hero. I'm 10. I don't know from. No. So, but it was the same thing where your parents were you see your parents laughing uncontrollably at a comedian.
Yes.
And I think the seed is planted. I want to make mommy or daddy do that.
Yes.
That had to have been.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure.
This new divorcee was laughing.
Now let's jump to the first time any family sees you perform stand-up comedy.
Oy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was 23. I was working as an accountant for what is now PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Correct.
During the day. And I went on stage at Nick's Comedy Stop, which you performed at.
Of course.
Yes. And it was an open mic. And Billy Martin, who is now the head writer for the Bill Maher HBO show, and before that, Politically Incorrect, he was the MC.
Wow.
So he was probably like 30.
Sure.
I was 23. I went on. I did an impression of Jerry Seinfeld and Kramer in a basketball game.
That was the opener?
That was the opener. And applause break, and it was over.
At any point during that bit, did you, in Jerry's voice, yell, "Shoot the ball"?
It wasn't.
Just shoot.
Kramer calls a charge on Jerry, and it wasn't a charge. There was no charge. Who calls a charge in a pickup game?
Great.
Yeah, and that was the.
But big laughs, and mom was
big
there.
laughs, and my mom, my dad, and a couple of friends from college. You had the Billy, I remember, referred to them as hostages. You had to bring 4 people to get on stage.
Right.
And it was, they would really pack that place in 1993. It was something else. It was exhilarating. And as Alan King said, you can't go back to selling shoes after that.
No. But that's the beginning of the death of stand-up comedy.
Sure.
93.
Yeah.
The gold rush of the mid to late 80s. was
strip mining.
dead by 92, 93.
Yep.
So you're 23, you're an accountant, and you kill
Yeah.
in front of your family.
Yes.
Was that literally the first time? No, couldn't have been.
No, it was probably the second or third time
That you'd been on a professional comedy stage.
Yes. Yes.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Had you bombed yet in those first couple times?
Well, I had forgotten the end of my joke, and I had
That
to.
doesn't
and I had
help.
to- yeah, and I had to tell Billy to come get me because I forgot But he used to host every Monday night. He used to host the open mic.
So you would get to
and it couldn't have been nicer. That was the great thing.
Yeah, that does make a difference.
Yeah.
And the comedy scene in Boston, when I finally got there, was so similar to me to my own hometown of San Francisco in that the audience was endless
Yeah.
in terms of going to see stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
There were venues and there were made men.
Yeah.
in the town.
Yes, that's so true.
Yeah.
Yes, capos and yes,
big
yes,
time.
yes.
And they too were somehow welcoming of new blood. At least when I passed
they were
through
they had a sort of mentor
Don
attitude. Don Gavin embraced me immediately because he found out that I had played football in college.
Sure.
and
That was all he needed to hear.
That was the connection.
Lenny.
and Don Gavin and Lenny embraced me, and Steve Sweeney.
Yep.
They were very nice and very generous. A guy named Rich Seisler and Paul D'Angelo was another guy who you would love. And yeah, they were so.
So now what do? You're 23 and you kill.
Yeah.
Now what happens? You're an accountant.
I go every morning. I have the secret life like a superhero.
Yeah. Just to back things up, if you don't mind, superhero. Superman. The Jewish superhero. Able to lease a tall building and a single phone call.
Wow.
That is an old,
That is
tired joke. I just want to catch folks up. There's research that goes into this show, Gary.
Yeah. No, I could tell.
And I just thought I'd begin with what my research quickly and quite frankly easily came up with. The following. Gary Gulman is a stand-up comedian who lives in New York City. Originally from Boston, Gary has been a scholarship college football player, an accountant, a barista, a doorman, a waiter, and a high school teacher. Now he's one of the most popular touring comics and one of a handful of comedians to perform on every single late-night comedy program. Gary will be the next ex-Bostonian comic to break huge. C.K. Burr Gulman. You heard it here first. Rave, the Village Voice. He's made 3 TV specials and 3 albums. Gary's marked his 20th anniversary in stand-up comedy with It's About Time tour, selling out theaters throughout the country. It's no wonder the New York Times wrote, Gary is finally being recognized as one of the country's strongest comedians. So all of that is the bio on your website.
Yeah.
And my first question is, how strong are you really? Clean and jerk, what are we talking?
Well,
Because the New York Times says
I don't
the
clean and
strongest.
jerk anymore because of my back.
Sure.
You don't want to throw your back cleaning nor jerking. I would say I could probably bench press 205.
If you had to guess, thank you for your honesty. If you had to guess, what would you say the record set in 1988 by a Russian, no doubt, for the clean and jerk remains to this day?
Would probably be
The record.
over 1,100 pounds, right?
528, very close.
Okay.
582, sorry.
Okay.
A little dyslexic on you. And the women's, another Russian, Tatiana Kashirina,
Wow.
women's,
310.
425.
Wow.
Right?
That's
I would
remarkable.
not have guessed that close
Wow.
to the men's, even in the Me Too, because this is 1988. All right. So
Yes.
my second question is, I know for me it's arguably one of the single most agonizing things creatively that I ever have to do and constantly redo. How painful was it to write that bio? Right?
Excruciating. Excruciating. You don't want to.
You're selling.
Yes.
You're acknowledging your own accomplishments.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. And then you're enumerating them. It's not that big a deal.
And praying.
Yeah.
People do not know it's
Yes.
you that wrote this.
Yes, I know. And have to get it approved by my manager, and they tell me to build up this part of it. And
That
include
happened?
those
There was a
quotes.
notes
Oh yeah,
session?
there were notes on the bio because it's the worst part of.
Ugh.
Yes. Notice that I wrote that 5 years ago now, and I haven't updated it at all with anything that's happened since.
I'm
it
super
doesn't matter.
excited that it hasn't been updated because that makes me feel better about not updating my own.
Yeah. Why would you?
Yeah. But there is a new tour coming out this month, according to your website.
Yes.
And what's the name of that tour?
The Great Depression.
That's great.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
So now we can go back. You're an accountant, as we saw all these other titles that you had. But was it during you're an accountant where the transition to I've got to keep doing the stand-up thing because it feels great?
Well, there was that, but I think when you grow up revering these people, and you mentioned this during the intro about the SAG Awards, the respect of your peers.
It's everything.
You just at some point, and never to the point where you're just making the back of the room laugh, but more importantly than the audience laughing, you want those guys, the Don Gavins,
After the show,
to tell you that they liked what you had to say, or I wish I had thought of that. If they ever say, I wish I had thought of that, oh my gosh.
Dunzo.
It's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the made men in San Francisco, a guy named Marty Cohen, came up to me after one of the shows and said, when your material catches up with your stage presence.
Wow.
I was 20.
Wow.
Yeah. And I knew I had no material to speak of.
Who does a 20?
I know. Certainly not me.
Yeah.
But he said, when your material catches up with your stage presence,
Wow.
look out.
That's amazing. What a
But
great
it was
compliment.
enough to drive forward
of course.
what I was already betting on, which was the stage presence.
Yeah.
So how was that part for you? Because, look, there's the naturally funny. There's the gregariously outgoing funny. And then there's the introvert, intellectual sort of, I can write funny. But these are all different strengths.
Sure.
So what was your persona like originally on stage? How comfortable?
Well, I was hiding behind impressions.
Yep.
So that's
Same here.
easier. Yeah. I was.
So that's all you were doing originally?
Yeah.
Wow, me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I kept it going.
Yeah. But then it's interesting. But I saw a Paul Reiser special.
It all comes back to Paul.
2.5 blocks from home or something like that here at the Fab Palladium. And I saw this man who I had seen Seinfeld's Letterman's, but those guys wouldn't put out specials.
Or no.
Paul Reiser made a special. It came on at 1 a.m. after I had done a Saturday night show. It came on NBC after Saturday Night Live. They would show an old special from this one I think was on Showtime. And he just did his voice. He was just Paul Reiser for the entire hour. And I remember thinking of you specifically, but also Dana Carvey, and to a lesser extent, some of the guys in Boston. I said, you know what, my impressions, they're okay, but they're impressions of impressions. And I don't think to succeed as an impressionist, I have to be better than these guys. And now here's this guy who's just talking like himself. I want to try that. I think that's better for me. And I think that would be a smarter move, because
that's a huge, giant turning point.
Yeah. So a year in, I throw out all my impressions and just started, and my friends.
You wouldn't even buffer it a little bit at the top? You just went up naked.
I went up naked.
And writing that material is brand new.
Yeah, but it was just I was just doing an impression of Paul Reiser's writing, right? So it was Paul Reiser was sort of a link between Did You Ever Notice?
Yeah.
To here's what happens with me.
Yes.
And these are some small things.
I forget who the comic was, but someone compared the two by saying one leans in and the other leans back between Paul and Jerry. Paul would lean in and say, here's the thing. And Jerry would lean back and say, I'm thinking high. Here's the thing. I'm thinking high. Yeah. That was the two of them.
Yeah.
So you thought you would lean in and speak your mind, but it felt a little like Paul's, was it his cadence or just his freedom to
It was the observations, but from his life and his world. So it was probably sort of Robert Klein.
Sure.
But I hadn't grown up on Robert Klein. That was more for my parents and maybe my older brothers. So Reiser was my Robert Klein.
And how did that go over?
I bombed for months, but then I found this one joke, and that was all it took, about the ropes in gym class.
Keep going.
And the teacher would say, don't run in the hallways. Instead, climb 90 feet straight in the air. When you get to the top, you're going to be exhausted, slide down so fast, there's fire coming out of your hands. And you're worried about falling. Don't worry about falling. We've taken precautions. We've laid down these thin blue mats. and that was the first, that's all I needed.
You told a universal truth.
Yeah.
That I'm going to guess came from your actual life.
Yes.
And also a part of your act that remains to this day, which is, how is this normal and okay? This thing that's going on.
Yes.
How are we all okay with it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you found that joke.
Yes.
And then it killed.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And then it was off to the races.
It was
I
easier
hadn't found my voice, but I had said, all right, these are the things I like to talk about.
Right.
And at the time, the other side of it is sort of recognizing your limitations. I can't do as good an impression as Pollock. And I also am not willing to go as far or comfortable as going far dirty as some of these guys who go really dirty, like Dave Attell. I'm never going to feel comfortable being as honest as he is, and you can't really half-ass it. So I found something that I could go full steam ahead with and feel comfortable in myself. It just, yeah.
Interestingly enough, when you were 5, I feel like that same vernacular rhythm, personalized storytelling was shared by David Brenner.
Oh yeah.
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 That seed was planted.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That was another one of my moments like we are having here when I met David Brenner at the Ice House in Pasadena.
When was that?
And then that was in October of 2000, probably around October 11th, I think, because a week later I did my first Leno, and then I got a call from this voice I had heard as a kid. Hey, Letterman had a heart attack. And he asked me to come on. He guest hosted Letterman.
Holy shit.
And I was pinching myself. I'm still pinching myself. It seems anytime something like that happens, or what's happening now, I feel like I'm in the most twisted video gamer's world,
right,
where he's simulating a life, and he says, all right, I'm gonna mess with the Gulman kid for years, but then these bizarre things from his childhood will come back, and these will be the indications that he's in a computer simulation, much like the Matrix.
You're not wrong. By the way, if you start off like we did as a preteen kid dreaming about while watching a comedian, and then you devote your life to it, and somehow get better and fortunate enough to get opportunities, you will ultimately meet people that you idolize. I was at home. The year must have been 84, 85. We'll go to Ryan again to look up when broadcast news came out. Maybe our guest knows that as well.
85 or 86, I think.
Okay. That makes sense because that would be the timing. I'm at home. I get a call from the now very powerful manager, Jimmy Miller, who then was...
oh, my gosh.
Was the doorman at the Improv in Melrose.
And most famous for being Dennis and Rich Miller's brother.
Well... back then, he was most famous for that.
Okay, right. Yeah.
Now you would,
back then, yes.
You would make
now,
a different argument.
Yes, of course.
Now he would call them from Warner Brothers Jet.
Do you do a Miller?
Dennis.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
But they all have, they're all a little derivative. Yeah. I actually started enjoying another comedian who I saw him open up for Ricky Gervais.
Oh, my friend Alex.
Yeah, exactly. We had this friend in common.
Yeah.
And so Alex, did he tell you I got on him about driving the train behind the joke?
Yes.
And Dennis is like that great example of that. I mean, I'm so old. Bob Hope was but I want to tell you.
Oh my gosh!
After every joke.
But Rickles had Anyway Gang.
Yeah.
And then Joan Rivers had Oh Sure, Oh Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the way that the comedian protects themselves in case the joke doesn't go over as well.
It maintains the rhythm.
They say something super fast right behind it to fill what they assume is going to be dead air. That's the origin of the of the driving the train behind it.
Where does the expression "driving the train" though come from?
I might have made it up. Okay. I don't know. I don't know. I just started saying
it. I never heard it. I just
started saying it because I also felt like I was bringing it to other people's attention as opposed to someone bringing it to my attention that comedians do this.
Yeah.
That it goes on.
Yeah.
And
but it's a total insecurity thing.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Yeah.
And Dennis Miller, but he would on his Black and White, which is one of the great stand-up specials of all time.
It's a
and then my impression of him is
Button Down Mind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I think you saw the abbreviations joke. That's just a sort of a modern version of Abe Lincoln. Abe, baby, how are you?
Yes and no, but the truth is, it's great to acknowledge that sort of inspiration because it's there and it's real. But then again, how do you make your influence completely original?
Right.
Because that was a star-making turn of yours. Clearly, I mean, we could.
Yeah.
Well, the stats are in. This is not. This is no longer my opinion. Though that was a thing that our mutual friend Brian Kopelman told me to watch, and that was a thing that I told Jamie in bed when I told her that I was going to have you on the show. I said, pull up on the YouTube, the YouTube.
Someday Kevin Pollak will be bringing you up in bed, Gary. Just stick with it. And Weinberg will be talking about you in bed. Yeah,
yeah, I will say
a twisted, delusional.
Yeah. So the story I was getting at, Jimmy Miller Durham at an improv calls me at home and he says, Albert Brooks is here, who was my unattainable, right? And the Woody Allen of his generation.
I saw Real Life the other day. As funny as ever.
First time? Or it's been a while?
Hadn't seen it. Loved it the first time I saw it, but none of these movies hold up.
His do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Astonishingly.
Oh my gosh.
So I think I threw on clothes. I got down to the improv so fast I can't be certain. And then Bud Freeman had his table, Bud's table, this round table that sat in the corner of the little dining area. And sure enough, there's Albert Brooks. And he's kind of holding court. He's telling a story. And every seat at the round table is taken.
Oh, my word.
It's not an empty seat. So now I'm hovering too obviously. And I'm also looking at the people seated, and I'm doing the math. Who doesn't belong?
Yeah.
Who should I be replacing?
Yes.
In this case, it was Franklin Ajayi.
Oh.
And
car wash.
Yeah. Do the research. He might have been the only non-Jew, but still, I just felt like out of reverence and respect, anyone would want to sit at that table. So it made that, of course, it made sense for Franklin or all these people to be seated there. So now I'm kind of hovering, and Albert's telling a story because his father was this famous radio comic. His stage name was Park Your Carcass. And he was very famous at comedy radio. And so Albert's telling this story. So anyways, my father's buried at the cemetery. He was a famous radio comedian. And those other famous people buried around him. And then he looked up at me and he goes, "Kevin, sit down." So
wow.
Yeah. Didn't even know he knew my name or that I was on the planet. And then he goes back to telling his story. So I have this recurring dream where I'm at my father's grave and I'm paying my respects. And buried next to my father, so you know, is Mo Howard of the Three Stooges. Kevin, please find a seat. So now it dawns on me when the second time he references me, he's fully aware there's no seat at the table.
Oh my gosh.
And that I'm hovering.
Oh my gosh.
So now he's doing bits
oh my gosh.
to me for my benefit while telling a ridiculously hilarious story and holding court.
Oh my gosh.
He's slipping out for a second and just entertaining me. And it goes back in the story. So anyways, Mo Howard's buried next to my father, and I in the dream I'm at my father's gravestone, and I'm hunched over, and I'm whispering, I'm mumbling my love and respect. Kevin, there's got to be a chair somewhere. And I look over, and there's oh shit, I fucked up the joke. It's Larry Howard who's buried there, and because in the dream Mo Howard is leaning over Larry's grave and he's stabbing 2 fingers into the dirt, and he's saying, "You bastard, I can't get work as a single." And then that night he goes on stage and does 45 minutes stream of conscious on why, and I'd never seen him do stand-up. I'd only seen him do stand-up on TV. He didn't really do it publicly that often. And he did 45 minutes stream of conscious on why he was going to lose that weekend the Academy Award to Sean Connery. That's why I asked what year Broadcast News came out, because
For Untouchables.
But it was the most, and the story had just broke that Sean Connery may or may not have beat his wife at one point or took a swing at her.
Wow.
And so that was very involved in Albert's 45 minutes.
Oh my God.
And it was a tour de force, and it was
of course
watching something that no one could do. It was like, I mean, his real life name is Albert Einstein.
Yeah. No, I know.
And so it was like watching Albert Einstein figure out a problem in front of an audience, and every aspect of it was so genius that it was just an instant. Well, I should stop. I should stop all effort.
Yes,
because that'll never happen. But then seconds later, a relief of that stress comes in, saying, "Well, there can only be one him."
Yeah.
You don't. What are you, Mount Rushmore? Is that where you're going?
Right.
Relax.
Yes.
Sell the concession at Mount Rushmore. You don't have to be the guy on the mountain.
Right. Well, I'm sure there were a lot of bands that saw the Beatles and said, we can't do it anymore. But luckily, Steely Dan said, well, we'll be the best Steely Dan we can be.
Well,
and
that's
they have a lot of fans, and I feel the same way because I've seen so many comedians like that where you watch them and you say, why bother? Or I need to work harder. And that's, yeah. Luckily, I took that route mostly, but there were nights where you saw some of these guys say, "Why do I bother?
Yeah,
I'm a fraud."
But that was the same moment,
and that was the big struggle because we revere it so much.
Right.
It's the highest calling, the highest power, and if you're not doing it service, get out of the way and let somebody who can do it right.
Which does ultimately serve as inspiration.
Yes.
At some point.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you do want to be that.
But it's so frustrating early on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're getting one out that Don Gavin says, I wish I would have thought of that.
Yes. Right.
So when and how do you move to L.A.?
I got it. They used to give development deals to stand-up comedians
at Just
Montreal.
for Laughs. Yeah.
Yes, and
now I feel like I've put the fear of God in too much with the microphone. Is his sound okay? Because now he's coming at it from St. Louis. Yeah,
he sounds okay.
Give a little. I hate to make this.
What do you think?
You don't have to write it.
Okay. Perfectly fine.
All right, Secretariat. You could just be Secretariat. I should have named the jockey who wrote Secretariat. That would have been
all right.
That would have been the reference.
Well, I only know Seattle Slew was Steve Cawthon, right?
There you go.
Yeah,
that'll work.
I don't know who wrote Secretariat.
So getting back to you coming to LA,
Willie Shoemaker.
Let's say yes because it should have been. Yes. Yeah. No, I don't know that Willie was around.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who is the I need the jockey on Secretariat.
Look at how good you have to be as a jockey.
Right?
I can name 2. There have been dozens.
Well, I'm going to say hundreds, if not thousands. Yeah.
I think it's Ron Turcotti. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Ron Turcotti.
Ron Turcotti?
Is that right?
Wow. Sure. Thank you for that, Jordan. Take the rest of the minute off. Okay. Is it to New York first?
No. Directly
you got
from Boston.
You got the development deal at Just for Laughs.
At Just for Laughs.
What year?
I got it in 1999 for the 2000. I wrote it in 2000 with a showrunner, and I didn't get picked up.
And how horribly did that experience go?
Well, I was able to quit my job as a teacher.
Finally.
Yes. And so it was one of the greatest
and moved
in my life, and moved to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And and then I got another one the following year with CBS, another one the year after with Paramount. So
and do you feel it was because these people would see you do stand up in LA and say, "Why don't we have this guy?"
Definitely.
Yeah.
And at Just for Laughs, it was only 5 minutes.
Right.
Over the 3 or 4 years that I got development deals, I did a total of maybe 15, 20 minutes. But there was a point of view, and I was young and cute, I think.
Tall, dark, and handsome. Come on. Don't take that away from yourself.
All right, I won't.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, you're 6'6"?
6'6", yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So already you're down to,
Right.
let's just count the Jews that are 6'6". Jesus, it says
Dolph
here you.
Shays.
It says you.
Danny Shays. 2 of them are in the same family.
We're done.
Omri Caspi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the great Jewish prize fighter, heavyweight, the only one.
Max Baer.
Correct. Continue. Big
Yes.
Jews for 400. So you get these development deals.
I always say you can't talk to a Jew about baseball for 30 seconds without hearing Sandy Koufax.
That's right.
Bigger than Moses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Of course.
Yes.
Unless you're from San Francisco, and then not so much. But
Sure.
you're getting these development things, and
Yeah.
you're starting to feel like, oh, I guess I'll be an actor now.
Yeah.
Because listen, when I saw Paul Reiser, before him, when I saw Don Rickles and Kelly's Heroes, there was a seed planted that said, funny people get to be actors.
Yes.
I never wanted to be the greatest comedian of all time. And I wasn't even thinking in terms of springboard. It was, I'm going to do it all.
Right. Sure. Why wouldn't you?
Right.
All these things are really fun.
Yes.
Yes.
And they're not being a teacher.
Right.
They're not being an accountant.
The people will laugh at me.
Yes.
But I will say the situation in 1999
2000
was you only headlined in theaters if you were there was Richard Jeni and Brian Regan. Those were the only 2 guys really who sold a lot of tickets who weren't on a TV series or a movie.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The rest of us had to have credits.
Yes, you had to have credits. So that was what I was thinking at the time. All right, I'll do this, and then I'll be able to do as much stand up as I want,
Theaters.
and I'll get better.
Yeah.
And I'll get better at stand up. It was always in the service of getting better. That was the thing I always dreamed of. Well, the issue with LA is the stage time was really tough to get back then. I remember one year I was on The Tonight Show twice. I was on at the Laugh Factory and the Improv, 0. I was just doing bar shows and coffee shops. And it was a good thing because I said, all right, I have 3 nights off a week. I got into a good acting class.
But you could also do the
helpful.
road still from those Tonight shows.
No.
Already gone.
Already gone. Wow. Sadly. Yeah.
Well, I think that also came from the death in the mid-90s.
Yep.
Where-
Absolutely.
Where the gold rush I spoke of, for those listening who aren't aware, there were these TV shows, Evening at the Improv and whatnot,
Yeah.
where you would see all these comedians do 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't just talk shows like Carson and whatnot. And you were introduced to a lot of funny people. So comedy clubs had to service where these people could play.
Yeah.
And they went from maybe 30 good, strong stand-up comedy clubs to 300
Yes.
in the mid to late 80s. It
Yes.
blew up insane.
Yes.
Every former disco, every
Yes.
bar said,
Oh
we'll
my
have comedy
gosh.
night. No, we'll be a
Yes.
comedy club.
Yes.
And it just blew up and went crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there was an inventory problem when that happened because there weren't 300 headliners.
Right.
So people would see funny people on TV do 5 minutes and kill. And then they'd go pay money to see that comedian do an hour. And
Yeah.
he was wildly unqualified to do an hour.
Oh my gosh.
And these places that was caused the death ultimately because there were too many.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you come in when the death is happening.
Yes.
And you get the Tonight Show, which is unbelievable, and your own development deals. You're calling home, honey, Mom, Dad, this is unbelievable.
I know.
They want me to do another show over at CBS now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't get on at the Improv
Yeah.
or the Laugh Factory
Yep.
because they were snubbing you out of jealousy. I mean, you had an act.
Right. Well, part of it was that you would go to the Improv or Comedy and Magic Club used me a lot. They were very great. But
Mike
you would
Lacey, wonderful people.
Yeah, wonderful people. You would get a meal.
Yep.
But you would go on. You would host.
There were weird
Tim
puppets.
Allen, Ray Romano.
Yeah.
A magician.
Yep.
That you'd never heard of, but could levitate.
Yeah.
the room.
You
They
know
were incredible.
Seinfeld's reduction of all magic?
No.
Here's a quarter, now it's gone. You're an idiot. When I told that to Penn Teller, he said, well, he's right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So they were huge stars in L.A. and it was tough to get stage time.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. We'd like to put you on, kid, but Robin Williams
yeah.
wants to do.
And the Laugh Factory was. I remember my manager said, it's like this guy Jamie Masada is throwing a party, and you're not one of the cool kids, so you're not invited. And yeah,
Yes.
and it was a bummer. Yeah,
So you can't go on the road. You can't get stage time in LA. You've got development deals.
yeah.
What are you doing?
I'm writing all day in notebooks, going on at
You're hanging out with other comics.
Yep.
You're starting to make a peer group
Yep.
that consists of expats or
Guys from Boston, but also I started to take an acting class, and that was very helpful. That gave me 3 nights a week where I had some place to be, and I was learning acting, and I felt like I had a reason to be here.
Okay.
I would go on auditions every once in a while, but even that was really, really hard at the time because they were transferring to reality shows. There weren't a lot of sitcoms, and
Yeah.
it was just
Your
very
timing is
difficult.
not
My
great.
timing was horrendous. It always has been, yeah.
But you're succeeding based on your own actual talent. Like the
I guess
5
so.
minutes at Just for Laughs
Yeah.
suddenly produces.
Yeah.
Because, don't take anything away from the fact that, yes, they were handing these development deals out,
Yeah.
not to everyone.
No. But the thing I always think back on is that it's the necessity idea. Stage time was at such a premium. I couldn't go on there and wing it. I had to make the most of it. So I'd spend the day writing what I was going to say that night, and it was easier to get something that worked
Yeah.
longer and sharper and better than it was to try out something brand new where if it fails, it's like, oh, there goes that idea. And I spent all day working on it. So that's how I think I got into the more long form of writing,
Yeah.
out of necessity.
And I got to go back to what I feel like is prevalent and so powerful in your stand-up act now,
Okay.
and get a little more of the origin story of that, which is the ability to tell a story and digress and commit to the absolute minutia of where you're digressing to, but also create characters in it, like the sassy secretary, right? You throw her a bone.
Sure.
And and making comments like that's so her.
Well, that was I write down funny things that I hear
Right.
over here in restaurants, and a woman named Jody was talking to a friend at this vegan restaurant. So you're already amongst the smuggest. And she says to her friend this really flippant thing she said at work. And she said, and it was clear that she was Jody. She said, "Now how Jody is that?" And her friend said, "That is so Jody." And I was like, oh my gosh, these people are talking like they're stars in this TV show of their life. And I said, I wrote it down. I never forgot it. And I actually tried to write jokes about that exchange and how obnoxious it was. And I said, no, this is better for this woman that I made up to say it. And the
Come from you.
the secretary character was, when we were freshmen in college, a friend of ours had plumbing equipment, and he tried to fix a leak in the shower in our dorm, and it flooded the entire floor. And we created a fake plumbing company called Chief and Sons, and this woman who wasn't even aware of the plumbing going on, her name was Lisa, she became Dottie. She was Dottie, and so it's memory in some ways is a curse, but in other ways it provides great inventory for jokes and characters. Yeah.
And then the evolution of writing material and finding your place in the sun, as it were.
Yeah.
Just in terms of, there's finding your original voice, there's writing to your own strength, and then there's, this is the area that is succeeding most with the audience.
Right.
It's all me, so I'm gonna focus more on that.
Yeah.
There's like a transition that happens,
Right.
where your strength was it empowering to find? I mean, I could be derivative and say, let's talk about the abbreviation bit.
Yeah.
But there has to be a moment in time for someone like me who needs it where there's a jump, where there's a personal jump
Yeah.
in your performance. There's a jump for the audience of recognition and critical mass.
Right. Yes. The tipping point.
Yeah.
As Malcolm Gladwell would say. I think, well, the timing here again is off. So I had done the abbreviation joke for the first time when I was doing that Paul Reiser thing, where I was just figuring out, and I had this premise that most of the states start with the same first two letters. At least there's chunks of them. Massachusetts, and I had that observation, that premise.
Right.
Went on stage and worked on it. Got it to the point where they realize that they're all starting with the States, and they start yelling at each other, and then over the years, I'd take it out of the shop every once in a while with a good crowd, and it would get some laughs, but it never, there's this idea, and you've gone through this, I'm sure, where it's a great joke. I can't find an ending. I can't even, why should I even bring it out if I can't find an ending?
Right.
So I'll keep working, trying to find an ending.
But you have to workshop something like that on stage.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So I had always workshopped it on stage, but never got to the point where I could put it on TV. It was also too long. It was 7 minutes, and the shows only give you 4.5, 5 minutes. And my manager had taken that joke, just maybe an audio or maybe at the Comedy Cellar video of it, to all the late night shows. Only Conan, the booker at Conan, J.P. Buck, said, I want you to do that, and you can do it as long as it takes. I want you to do that. I went into the hospital for depression and anxiety in May.
Sure, of course.
Okay.
As one does.
Came out 3 weeks later, feeling better.
Sure.
He says, okay, can you do it in July? I said, well, it'll be one of my first shows back from the bug house, but I'll do it.
Uh-huh.
Did it. Didn't feel any different. The one thing Conan said, wow, that was like something Bob Newhart would do. And Conan, I revere.
To you on the air or
no, off, in between. He said, wow, that was like,
you.
yes, that was like something that reminded me of something Bob Newhart would do.
One of the all-time greats.
Yes.
A Mount Rushmore guy.
And somebody who I idolized not only as a stand-up, but the original Bob Newhart show and then Newhart were
Forget
just...
it. Talk about a comedian owning his world.
Yes, and also the idea that a lot of that, the great comedians, you feel like, he wrote that for me because nobody else would get this.
Sure.
And so it didn't play that well in the room. The applause wasn't raucous or anything like that.
At Conan.
Yeah, at Conan. And I never go online to see what the people say. I don't want to see how many views or anything. I drive myself insane.
Yeah.
And then...
Also, who gives a shit?
And then I continued to spiral into another depression because it was like, that's the best I'm ever going to write. And nobody even noticed. And then Patton Oswalt wrote this really nice complimentary post on Facebook. And all of a sudden it was sort of, that's the thing I'm most known for. Yeah.
Patton Oswalt wrote something on Facebook.
Yeah. So months later, I can't believe I've just seen this. This is, and it was like,
yeah. It's what you want, but would never think possible nor ask.
It would be sick.
Yeah.
Because he obviously took a lot of time, and it was ridiculous.
It was a knighting by a made man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
At the highest level.
Yes.
And in a personal way.
Yes.
Like it made it his life fulfillment.
Yeah. And it's like it probably took him some time to formulate that and everything like that, but you can't imagine what it did for me as it was just, it made me feel like, oh, even if it's just him, I get it. I'm doing something right.
And what are the first inclinations of that it had an effect beyond you being told? Have you read what Patton Oswalt wrote about, or did he tag you and you saw it instantly? I've never been on Facebook.
I saw it a couple of days later.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are the first inclinations that a larger group of people had? not only seen his post, but then followed it by watching the appearance.
I think somebody in either my manager, I only had a manager at the time. I think he said, "Have you seen this?" And I looked at it and it was 2 million views. And then a couple days later it was 5 million. And yeah. And I was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how does show business come calling from that? Because I think this is an interesting modern tale in that regard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I remember the third time I was on Merv Griffin.
Okay.
He loved comedians.
Yes.
There's a thing on YouTube where he has Jerry Seinfeld on, and Merv, who loved comedians, would say, "Oh, Jerry, you've brought a few comedians with you today." And the camera showed me and Larry Miller in suits at the back of the room watching. You can see this on YouTube. And Larry and I are sort of nodding in suits, because you would bring comics with you.
I always do that. It's the best part of the thing. And then you introduce them to the booker, and it's not as big a shock to the system when they do it themselves.
Absolutely. Yes. It certainly led to my getting the Tonight Show with Carson.
Yeah.
But, and then at one point Merv, says that, and Jerry says, "Yeah, you know why they're back there? They're waiting for me to take ill." But my third time on, Merv brought me to the couch, that spontaneous panel thing. And Alan King had already been interviewed. He was the first guest out.
Gosh.
And so being in that moment where Alan King on Merv Griffin says, "This kid's going to be somebody," that would be the modern, the old-timey version of this Facebook post.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm curious what the modern version of that 5 million views and what and so does the phone ring at the agency and to the management, or what does that actually mean?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Other than making you feel like $1 million.
My agent at the time was a man who represented, I want to say, Arcade Fire, which I hadn't heard of until him, but they're an arena band.
Very big.
Yes.
Sure.
But he was a fan of my comedy. And he said, "Listen, I know nothing about comedy, but I know small rock clubs, and I can book you into those. I think you can sell 300 tickets just about anywhere." And
from that,
it was something earlier. It was a joke about role playing with my girlfriend that this guy had really clung to, and that was probably a year prior to the abbreviations. He says, you have enough fans where you can sell a couple 300 tickets. In Boston, where I started off, I can sell a theater, but the small rock clubs, this will be some of the other guys were doing it, and it'll be perfect for you, and then I had a career as a touring comedian. Yeah.
But so the effect from the patent post, though.
Oh, that from 300 to 600 to in some places more than that. Yeah.
Right.
It was, and also sadly I got an agent who actually could send me out on auditions and
sadly?
Well, I hated to leave that guy who was a fan and had taken time out of his booking huge rock stars.
But he'd been around long enough to know all my acts are bands.
Yeah.
I thought this kid was ridiculously great, so I'm going to help him. He had to know there was perhaps. Yeah, no, letting go of management and agents at various points in your career is horrible.
Yeah.
If you're a caring person.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And I even stayed with one longer than I should have. And I look back at ridiculous opportunities
called
that
being nice.
Could have come my way if I just cut the guy with the ponytail.
Oh, I know. I had a guy with a ponytail too.
Yeah. We'll talk off air. It might be the same guy.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. There's a segment on the show called Famous Questions. The questions themselves, not famous.
Okay.
I reach out to famous people that know you, and I ask them to write a question. Calm down. It's just Brian Kopelman.
Yeah, that's what I
The co-creator of Billions and so much more. Who writes the following question to you. What was the good part of being the only Jew on the BC football team? The good part.
Being the only
Jew we can assume what the bad parts were.
On the BC football team. I am going to say that
Is it
I had
wrong
a
of
very-
me, forgive me for interrupting, to assume this is Boston College? Because I don't
Yes.
want people thinking you were part of the Before Christ football team that toured
No.
and played other.
No, Boston College.
Okay.
Right after Doug Flutie had won the Heisman.
Sure.
So it was a prominent football program. They still make bowl games, but they were the toast of New England at the time.
Yeah.
The best part, my greatest memories of being part of that was there were a dozen or so guys on the team who thought I was the funniest thing they'd ever been around.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a great blocker. I didn't have the best hands. I was athletic. I had played basketball. There were 90 football scholarships. I had an NFL body, but my brain I wasn't a killer or anything like that. I was just athletic and from playing basketball.
Tight
it
end?
translates-
What were you?
I was the tight end, yes.
Okay.
And so there were a dozen guys at least who thought I was hilarious, and I would entertain them during practice. Practices are grueling. They last for 3 hours. It's freezing or hot. There's
Right.
nothing in between. And I would make these guys laugh. And
Who were killers.
they were killers. And then there was another thing. I don't know if I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but there's something in Jews that we love to make the non-Jews laugh.
Sure.
Like it must be a defense mechanism that if we can make them laugh,
They won't kill us.
kill us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there's such a great feeling. There's a survival to it. I'm making them laugh. I'm not.
Right.
I'm not really pulling my weight as a football player.
They'll
but I'm
forgive me.
entertaining them. And I remember the strength and conditioning coordinator. He recognized my wit, and it was just that was the best part of being part of that team. And I'm still very friendly. There were certain guys. There was one guy who I'm still friendly with. He was the quarterback of the team. He was on the cover of Street and Smith. He was a fifth-year senior when I was a freshman. And I have no idea why he took a liking to me, because he was big man on campus and I was a putz with a mullet
Sure.
at the time. And we're still friends to this day. And it's just his name couldn't have been less Jewish. His name is Mike Power.
Sure.
Yes. And he was the big man on campus and he
But what a great quarterback name, by the way.
Oh, perfect. And his son's name is Max Power.
Sure.
And yes.
Well, that's a little Jewy.
It is. It is. Yeah. So that was the best part of being on that football team. It was a good audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great answer to
A great question.
a very strong question.
Yeah. Very specific.
Very specific. I'm going to. The next segment of the show is called Ask Kevin. You're allowed to ask me any question. It can be silly or sincere or neither. But you are allowed to ask one question.
Okay. All right. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I'm
not sure there's a way for you to do that.
Okay. Did you feel when he says, "Who's going to protect us? You, Weinberg"? Did you? That's
Obviously,
that's a
anti-Semitic.
really anti-Semitic moment.
Yes.
And I have this thing. I don't know if Brian Koppelman told you. I made up this thing called it's an award for stereotypical performances of Jews. And I don't think that Weinberg was a stereotypical performance in that. I think that was an anti-Semitic moment. But you weren't a Schmendrick and a Nebish, and you were strong, and you were in the Navy, and you were and
They were very little. They were very yeah.
Okay.
Other than the ordering of Kung Pao chicken, there wasn't a lot.
You got any Kung Pao?
There wasn't a lot of Jewy in Weinberg. You're right. So also, our characters only meet for a second in his office.
Yes.
We shake hands. We do not share words.
Yes.
There is no reason for him to single me out.
No.
Doesn't know me from Adam.
No.
Just wants to make a point.
Yes.
Who's going to do it? You, Caffey? Is the Jew over there going to do it?
Yeah. Yes. My friend Hurwitz and I go back and forth. Weinberg becomes the thing in our life where we say, who's gonna, all right. So I created this award show. It's called the Kikes. And recently we gave John Turturro a Lifetime Achievement Award for his work as some of the kikiest kikes.
Yeah.
And because Brando used to say, they never show the kike. And I say, they mostly show the kike. They rarely show somebody like Weinberg. But I don't think, and maybe you're at that level, there's got to be a surreal moment where you're like, Jack Nicholson is fucking with me because he's so committed, he's so real.
Yeah.
And did you feel, did that hurt?
Well, first of all, great question.
Okay, good.
And felt from your bone marrow, this question comes.
Because it hurt me as a Jew, and I wasn't sitting there. I was like, this is how we're perceived.
Yeah.
Well,
written by a Jew who wanted that moment to be what it was.
Yeah.
So there's no way me, the comedian who somehow became an actor with no formal training and somehow found himself on the set of this masterclass
Yes.
and pulling it off.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
There's no way there was ever a moment where I was thinking this is painful. It was too much of a daily celebration.
Wow.
The material, the character, all that moment, I knew what it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Right? But there's not even a reaction shot
Right.
from Weinberg. I
Yeah.
don't think. I think it's just him attacking Tom.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And breaking Tom down, Tom's
Yeah.
character, Caffey. Also, the surreal moments
But
with...
they must have shot your angle at some point where you
Sure.
did it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the only thing I'm capable of doing and found to a point of perfection is less is more.
Oh, my gosh.
I do nothing.
Yeah.
Until my current job of which I'm assuming is going to be up for a kike, the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, because I'm finally playing a loud, obnoxious Jew, which I've never done before. And I will tell you, it's not, doesn't
Right. The
come
Brothers K were not kikey.
It doesn't come
Yeah.
organic. No, the Brothers K were not.
Yeah.
I mean, Izzy or my character in that was, he was a showman. He's more of
Yeah.
a showman than...
And an entrepreneur. But
And also,
that-
I had Lou Jacoby.
Oh, my gosh.
You cut the turkey without
the
me,
turkey,
who
that's-
I'm now channeling
yes.
as Moish Maisel. For sure. I'm channeling Lou Jacoby and Richard Kind, basically. But also Nicholson was so surreal as Jack Nicholson in moments
Right.
that have made it into my act where he hit on my mom
Oh, my
just
word.
to freak me out.
Oh, my word.
Yes. And also this moment. Do you have a minute?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it really was, and it took me a long, I told friends this story for maybe 10 years before I ever thought about doing it on stage. So while we're shooting A Few Good Men, the story breaks that Magic Johnson is HIV positive.
Right.
And in that moment in time, I'm telling you listeners, and I promise you, it was as earth-shattering to the human conversation as 9/11. And don't write shit about me. It's the truth.
No, it was
Yeah.
our Kennedy. Up to that point, my generation, because I wasn't alive for Kennedy, but I remember where I was in my dorm room
Yeah.
when we found out.
Well, because
Yeah.
before Magic Johnson, it was their problem.
Yes.
It was the gay community's problem.
Yes.
And mankind as a whole wasn't concerned at all.
Yep.
They were selfishly disassociated.
Yeah.
When Magic Johnson, a very high-profile family man, contracted it,
Yes.
every human being
Yes.
thought, oh, fuck, now I get this.
Yes.
And so while working on the movie, we had a Lakers authority in Jack Nicholson. So while the world is going through this moment, I would see throughout the day crew members going up to Jack and saying, how? How did this happen? What does this mean? Like literally he would have the answer.
Wow.
And he was so iconic that I had chosen early on to leave Jack alone throughout the production. I wasn't going to try to make small talk. Other people did. They had a great time with him. I stopped myself from having certain moments of fun simply by just leave the fella alone. I had such reverence and
Yeah.
respect. But he was very goofy and gregarious, way more than you would think.
Wow.
So on the day that the news broke and people's lives and thoughts and personalities are weird that day, I'm released from set to go cool my heels in the trailer while they set up a shot. I'm walking from the soundstage back to the trailer at the Culver City's lot, Culver Studios rather, where they shot Gone with the Wind and Wizard of Oz and all kinds of things. And I'm walking back to the trailer and I hear someone behind me mumbling while I'm walking. I turn back and it's Jack. And he's also been released and he's about 5 feet behind me and we're walking sort of in tandem, but he's behind me and he's mumbling to himself. It's surreal. The whole fucking thing is surreal. It's just fucking surreal. And he catches up to me because I purposely slow down.
Yeah.
And we're walking in stride, and he gets to his trailer and he puts his hand on the door to go inside, and he stops and he turns back to me and he goes, "You want to know surreal?" And I pop out of my own brain and I think, "I'm sorry, Jack Nicholson, did you just ask me if I wanted to know what you think is surreal?" And I cup my hands underneath my chin, settling in for a good story. And Jack says to me and no one else, "I'm doing this picture Chinatown. And I'm rehearsing this scene. John Huston's character and mine are having a conversation. And you have to understand that John was like a surrogate father of mine. He meant the world to me. I groveled at his feet on a daily basis. I cared more about him than my own family. And while we're rehearsing the scene, I noticed over his shoulder, about 50 yards away, walking towards us, was his daughter Angelica, who I had just started banging a couple of weeks before.
Come on!
And I had not figured out a way to tell the old man. You know?
Oh my God.
I didn't want to break his heart. I didn't want to. He would never speak to me again. I didn't want to. I would have killed her if that's what he wanted. He meant that much to me. And anyways, I'm thinking about all of this while we're rehearsing the scene, and I realize it. And I come out of my own thoughts, back into the rehearsal, as John Huston in character says to my character, "Mr. Giddish, are you sleeping with my daughter?" Now that's surreal.
Oh,
and Jack spins on his heel and walks into
word.
his trailer. And I'm standing in an empty parking lot thinking, did anyone else see that?
Oh my.
Looking for a witness, basically. So when you ask, what am I thinking in the moment where he calls out my Jewy character? All I'm thinking is that moment.
Yes.
That Jack just shared this incredible personal story that, again, we had not really created a rapport.
Right, but it's incredibly personal.
He needed to tell someone.
And epic.
Epic beyond proportions. And the reason I think I never brought it on stage for 10 years or more, probably way more, is that it was his story. This happened to him.
Right.
Who the fuck am I to retell? But the story I tell on stage, and just now to you, is
Yeah,
what
but don't
happened
share it
to
with the
me.
master impressionist.
But also, what happened to me in
Yeah.
the parking lot
Yes.
was Jack Nicholson laying
Yes.
the story on me.
Yes,
So
but
I-
nobody does the Nicholson you do.
Well, it's conversational.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the hardest one to do.
I
That's-
don't like the
Yeah.
the character
Right, of course.
cartoon.
Yeah, that everybody else does. But
Yeah.
oh my gosh. Wow.
But so thank you for Ask Kevin. That was led to a story that I maybe not have told on this show, but it's been 10 years, so probably.
Wow.
Okay, now I should mention before I get to the next segment that you are re-mentioned. You are starting an extensive tour,
Yes.
And people should go to GaryGulman.com for all the dates.
Yes.
You're all over the place, big, beautiful
Yeah.
theaters all over the country, and I'm super excited for you.
Oh, thank you.
That's
nice.
As a new fan, I feel a little way
thanks.
behind the curve.
No, you're not way behind
On the new fan
the curve. That's
aspect.
That's really nice. It's I was hoping they'd find me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got 3 albums and 3 specials, so I'm
Yeah.
assuming what I didn't know was this level of success has kind of been going on for several years.
Yeah, but I'm still way under the radar. Criminally underrated.
That's on the one sheet for the tour, isn't it? Criminally underrated. Please welcome the criminally underrated.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But like we said before, I've had the respect of my peers for a long time. And that while you can't say that at Thanksgiving dinner,
Right.
I have the respect of my peers. Nobody cares. They want
Well,
to know that you're
I'd like to think that it fills some of the darkness
Yes.
when we go there.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It matters.
Oh man.
It feels terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you continue to sell out theaters and play around the world, as I'm going to assume our friend Bill Burr does, there's that time on stage that is magical.
Oh my gosh.
That is you transcend to all the childhood dreams, everything it's all in those moments.
Yeah.
If you're present, if you find a way to stay present.
Yeah.
So I wish you that.
Oh, thank you so much.
That joy and success.
That's a great wish. Thank you.
And now it's time for Kevin's Pop Quiz. Between 5 and 15 points possible for each of the 3 questions. Once the final score is tabulated, it'll be posted on our website along with the current standing of the top 100. Are you ready?
This is a whole show. I could do this for a whole show. I love this.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
We'll see about that.
All right.
Question number 1.
Yes.
Keith David or David Keith?
David Keith, Officer and a Gentleman?
Correct.
Yes, David Keith.
All right. We'll go with that one.
All right.
Question number 2.
Yes.
Carl Weathers or the weather in Carlsbad?
Carl Weathers.
Also correct.
Yes.
Question number 3. Steve?
No.
It's a perfect score. It's a perfect score. Oh, my God. Sammy Kiefer, the engineer, came in just for this portion of the show. Came in from another studio. It's a perfect score. And as such, filmed on his camera phone.
With the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So you know he means it.
Yes.
He brought out his Milwaukee's Brewer phone.
This is a baseball fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations
thank
on the score alone. But also thank you so very much.
This couldn't have gone better. This is,
No, not or for my needs, couldn't have gone better.
Well,
Yeah.
from my end, this was so fun.
So thank you for all of that. I'm just going through, since I'm out of shows and out of time, I guess we'll just have to break bread at some point.
It's one of those dreams you never would have made because it wasn't when you first started off comedy. Yeah, I want to do
podcast,
an interview show with Kevin Pollak.
and sit with him for an hour and a half.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
How does that happen, by the way, the hour and a half?
So fun.
I don't see how that's
Flew by.
possible. All right. Well, thank you, Gary Gulman.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. My gosh, I'm pinching myself.
Please continue to have a tremendously good life.
Oh, you too.
Won't you?
I will.
I mean, it's pressure now.
I will now.
I didn't go further down the I had just gotten out of the hospital thing. I assume that's something you talk about.
That's something I cover in The Great Depression. The Great Depression is the odyssey of my breakdown and recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I unfortunately bring everything back to me. It's the only way I know how to talk. I directed this little documentary called Misery Loves Comedy.
Oh, yeah.
So I interviewed 60 or so annoyingly famous funny people with the thesis you have to be miserable to be funny. And what I found it's technically still available on Amazon. What I found was that you had to have suffered misery, and that's a human experience. Everyone goes through misery at some point to varying degrees. But the artist has to go through it and then find a way to articulate it in an entertaining way.
Yes.
To either be universal, Seinfeld talks about the missing sock in the dryer.
Right.
As much as minutiae as that is, it's still a form of misery.
Yes.
That's universal.
Yes.
Or
yes.
so personal that the audience has never experienced it. They just sit back and live vicariously through the storytelling of it and hopefully laugh their asses off throughout it. So the cathartic level for you and this new tour, this new show, must be astonishing. And but it took forever to write, I'm guessing.
Well, the thing is that I had, luckily my depression and anxiety had never gotten in the way of me performing. The adrenaline would kick in, I'd get on stage, it would feel good for an hour, get off and collapse. And then in 2016, that stopped happening. I would get on stage, I would shake, I would get stage fright, I couldn't remember things. It wiped me out, and very quickly the necessity again came to my aid. When I did do stand-up, I couldn't ignore what I looked like and my shaking. I had to talk about it.
Wow.
And also you have this obligation to be funny.
Yes.
And that's what, and so eventually I was able to recover, and I had this new thing because I had dealt with the minutia mostly for most of my career.
Sure.
And you knew a little bit about me, but none of the bad stuff.
But the bad stuff forces itself out on stage.
Yeah.
And it forces you, who had honed all the comedic instincts on how to make anything funny.
Right.
That's the thing when folks ask, where do you come up with the material? The truth is, once you find your voice, everything's material.
Oh my gosh.
Everything.
It's so true.
So you have this debilitating...
you just have to find your voice.
That's it. That's all you got to. That's all you got to do. Break away from the other assholes who inspired you. Yeah. So the monster forced itself out of your face and into the microphone.
Yes.
And congratulations on getting to the other side of that.
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. I can't tell you.
Well, of course.
It's miraculous.
I mean, I'm glad you can't tell me. You should tell the audience who paid to see it.
I do tell the audience.
I'm not going to ask for material here. But I never know how personal to get into that story. You know, that's what Mark Mayer and other people do. They can't wait for someone to trip over a dark part of their lives so that he can do an hour and a half on it.
Yeah.
Whereas I always went the other way.
But it reminds me of the Engelbert Humperdinck joke. The joke about the two Siamese,
Keep talking.
The conjoined twins. You've never heard
Whose
this
joke
one?
is this?
It's an old joke.
Okay.
All right. Conjoined twins. They're incredibly beautiful, incredibly talented. One is a pianist, the other one is a violinist. They don't agree on a lot of things, but they do agree that their favorite performer is Engelbert Humperdinck. They read in the newspaper that Engelbert is coming to town. They get front row situation where they both can sit, obviously. They're conjoined at the hip. And
That's helpful.
Yes. And so they sit up front. Engelbart notices them. You can't not notice them. He invites them back to his hotel room. They have sex. One's playing the piano while the other one's servicing him. One plays the violin while the other one is servicing him. All night long. The next morning, Engelbert comes back on town. He kisses them both, thanks them for the most amazing night of his life. A year goes by. Engelbert is coming back to town. One of them says, Engelbert is coming back to town. She says, we should go and see him. And the other one says, I don't know, you think he'll remember us? and that's the thing with those deep podcasts where you open up your life to these people, but they're actually doing that with a lot of people. And while I know Mark, I could see where you go on those things and say, that's the guy I told about my hospitalization. You think he'll remember me?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want it to come off at all like I have anything but reverence for what Mark does.
Oh, I adore him.
It's astonishing.
It's incredible.
But also, it comes from a place like mine does in the sense that we've been in the trenches together.
Yes.
So Mark is looking for more darkness.
Yeah.
While easily talking about his own.
Yes.
And it's a revelation, clearly, the world over. And all the success that has come to him was earned simply by creating his own design from what he knew and who he is. Yeah. And that's all any of us are hoping for.
And so natural. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but my thing is always to leave people alone with so when you brought it up, that opened the door, and even still you see it's still none of my business. So I'm glad that you're...
But I had a therapist who said if everybody knows these things about you, you've got nothing. They got nothing on you.
It's no more terrible secret life.
And the reward for it has been a lot of people come up to me after the show and say that made me feel less alone. It made me feel better about my thing, and that's I get so much out of it. It's not one-sided.
Yeah. The question will be, how do you? I don't want to say go back, but how do you, when the tour is done and maybe the special's done and you have to write a whole new act?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Is there always going to be, I would say yes, there are always going to be some of that. Yeah. While you write the new act.
Yeah, so it'll be continue to be personal, but also, and you do this so well, it's a really nice collage. It's not just impressions, it's not just stories. Yeah. It's we're eclectic in our taste in comedy, and I think our shows reflect that, and it's I think it's very compelling.
Oh man. Well, now lifelong fan, I hope you are too. Check out Gary Gulman as he comes to your town, wherever that may be. And thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Kevin.
Sit there uncomfortably, please, while I wrap things up for the folks at home.
Okay.
Ryan Connor, ladies and Jews, engineer to the stars. Thank you, Ryan, for all that you do and have done for me today.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to be dismissive. I meant to be funny when I said take the rest of the minute off, just so you know.
No, I got that.
Yeah, it's purposely dismissive for the purpose of laughter. As my dear lifelong friend Bobby Slayton, who I owe a call to, would say, if you can't make fun of yourself, make fun of other people. There you go. All right, we are so winding down to the final handful of shows. The last live one will be March 2nd. If you hear this before that, and you can get tickets to the Dynasty Typewriter Theater. The whole original gang will be there. Evil Dr. Chen will be there. The floor director will be shooting the thing on the video. You can watch that on kevinpollack.tv eventually, or the YouTube. I want to thank Corey Levin in Post and the fine folks here at Earwolf, who now know how to protect themselves from you. Until next time, and as always, get out of my face.